Hello. In this video, we are going to talk about the common hiding spots in Pirate Island. Basically, the hiding spots that you're typically going to see going from hunter spawn to hider spawn. So basically, all the different hiding spots along this pathway, right? Let's go, right? This pathway. We love pathways in Block Hunt, right? Let's go, right? So now, basically, let's talk about it. Now, as you're coming from hunter spawn to hider spawn, many times you're going to find hiders on top of the building. So you should just be familiar with that, right? Get rid of anything, right? Alright. But starting from hunter spawn, right, we have these flower pots right here. Right? There should only be a total of 4 flower pots. So if you see 5 flower pots, for instance, like this, then that would be fake. Right? Going over here, we have another block pile. It basically consists of 3 different types of blocks. There's a melon, there's hay bales, and there's pumpkins. As for the melon, there should only be 1 melon. So if you see 2 melons, for instance like this, right, this is usually where a melon would hide, then this would be fake. As for the hay bales, there's a little bit more going on. I would just sort of memorize 2 in a row on the bottom is fake, 3 in a row right here is fake, and also if you see a square of hay bales like this, that would be fake. Alright, so something like that. And also, a hay bale can easily replace the spot where the melon was hiding, right? This would be a fake hay bale as well. As for the pumpkins, right, just like how you could see a hay bale hiding right here, you could sometimes see a pumpkin hiding right here. This would be fake. That's typically what you see from the pumpkins. Not as common, but you'll sometimes see a square of pumpkins like this, or even sometimes a pumpkin behind the stack. That would be fake as well. Okay, going over here, right, we have melon and a hay bale disconnected from the melon stack. Well, let's talk about the hay bales first then. Basically, if you ever see more than 1 hay bale, it's fake, right? For instance, a hay bale connecting the hay bale and the melon stack is fake, 2 hay bales on top of each other, or just simply 2 hay bales in a row. Any of those deviations, that would be fake. For the melons, basically, first things first, you should never see 2 melons on top of the stack, of course. You should also never see a square of melons like this. But there's these other 2 spots you should be familiar with. For instance, if you see 2 in a row on the left side of the stack, right? This would be 2 in a row on the left side. That would be fake. And also, if you see 2 in a row on the right side of the stack like that, that's also fake. So stuff like that you should just be familiar with. Right. Next, we're going to talk about this downstairs area of this, right? I like saying that, downstairs area. So we're going to talk about this because we're talking about this area because when you come from hunter spawn and go towards hider spawn, you literally pass the contents of this building, so you should just memorize it. Now, I say the most common thing in this building, maybe not the most common thing, but one thing I first memorized when learning this building was if you see a bookshelf hiding right here, right, at the very top. So you should just sort of memorize that. But some other spots you might see is a cube of hay bales like this, right? You see it squared off right here. I love that word, squared off. This would be fake. And also if you see 2 in a row on the left side of the stack like that, it's fake. Now, sometimes you see flower pots on top of this thing. I don't know why, but sometimes you'll see that. Now, sometimes you'll find random blocks hiding right here. Usually it's a furnace, sometimes it's an anvil, or even a cauldron, sometimes a flower pot hiding in this specific spot right here. Another thing, right, if I morph into a flower pot, sometimes you'll find flower pots hiding near this corner over here, right? Basically a flower pot hiding right here. That would be fake. As for these furnaces, sometimes you'll find, you know, a furnace squared off. I had to think of the word squared off like that, or 2 furnaces, right? That would be fake. So something like that would be fake. You might also see 2 furnaces on top of each other like this. That would be fake as well. Or even a flower pot on top of the furnace, right? I like saying that. That was good. Or even a flower pot on top of the furnace. That'll sometimes happen too. As for the anvils, so a total of 5 anvils. They're all approximately evenly spaced out. So for instance, if you see an anvil that's not evenly spaced out with them, for instance an anvil right here, it's pretty easy to tell that this would be a fake anvil. For flower pots, one more spot I believe is if you see a flower pot in this hole right here. So you should just be familiar with that. Alright, that would be fake. And also on top of the building, for the most part, they'll be launching their bow at you. So if you ever see bows heading towards you, I'm just kidding. If you see arrows heading towards you, then that would be fake. Obviously, that's fake, because sometimes you'll see hiders on top of this building. If you don't see them, sometimes they're literally hiding right here, so you should be familiar with that. You know, even if you don't see them, doesn't mean they're not up there. Sometimes they're up there. that's basically it for this building. For the most part, anyways. But, right. Anyways, that's basically it. Let's continue heading towards Hydra spawn, which is basically this area right here. This is where the Hydra spawn is located. And as you can see, we have a singular block pile at Hydra spawn, right? And this Hydra spawn block pile is pretty important to know about, right? The first spots that you should be familiar with is if you see a melon hiding in either one of these two spots, right? Basically right here or right here, right? These two spots should be empty. Some other spots you might see is if you see a hay bale hiding specifically right here, behind the stack. Sometimes it's even a melon. I'm just saying if you see a block specifically in this location, it's fake. Usually it's a hay bale. As for melons, sometimes you'll see it squared off right here. This would be fake. You might even see a cube of melons like this, right? A 2x2x2 cube of melons like this would be fake, right? Or if you see something like a Tetris piece, right? This is 4 blocks on top of the stack. That's how you know it's fake. That's basically it for this. And also this hay bale is alone, so if you see 2 hay bales all together, that's fake. 2 hay bales on top of each other, something like that, that would be fake. Alright, so now that we've talked about this block pile, this is not the only thing at Hydra spawn, right? We also have this tree. And there are a few ways that you can get on top of this tree. For instance, one way is to go from this building. Although, as a hunter, we don't care how hiders get on top of that tree, for the most part. All we care about is that we're able to get on top of it and kill them, obviously, right? But I just care about being familiar with the fact that hiders can get on top of this tree, right? And sometimes you'll find literally all sorts of blocks on top of this tree. Not just flower pots, but literally cakes or TNTs. Literally, you'll find random blocks on top of this tree sometimes. And so you should be familiar with the fact that hiders will sometimes hide on top of this tree. Right, and that's basically it for this tree. Right? Hiders, I'm pretty sure literally hiders spawn literally around the tree. You'll sometimes find them spawn literally right, leaning up against it. So you'll sometimes find hiders leaning up against the tree like that. It'll sometimes happen. Now there's these other things called ledges. I love calling them ledges, right? On the sides of these buildings near hydra spawn. And so you should be familiar with some of these ledges, right? It turns out there are no flower pots on any of these ledges against the large building, right? There are no flower pots on top of them. Right, but over to this building, we do actually have a singular flower pot on this ledge, so you should be familiar with the fact that this is a real flower pot. Right, but if you see a flower pot right here, then that would be a fake one. Right, you see a flower pot here, this would be a fake one as well, because notice it sort of blocks the entranceway into this building, so you should be familiar, there's a flower pot on this ledge, then it's fake. I guess another thing I should mention is that you sometimes, literally, for some weird reason, you'll sometimes find a hay bales right here, I don't know why. It's like, makes sense, right? But anyways, as for the ledges, you'll sometimes find flower pots on top of this ledge. Over here, you'll sometimes find flower pots right here, right here, right? This is a real flower pot, but I'd say the most common one actually is to find a flower pot on top of this ledge. Right, you'll sometimes find them there. Alright, going to this building, these ledges are slightly different, right? They're slightly different looking. Right, I'd say a pretty common spot is to find a flower pot over here at this corner right here. So you should be familiar with that. Right? You should never see any flower pot on the right side, right? You'll sometimes see this. Not all the time, but you should be familiar with that. Some other things that you might sometimes see is a cauldron blocking the entranceway to this house. And also you'll sometimes see hay bales blocking the entranceway to this house as well. So something like this, or something like this. Right, that's basically it for this hiders spawn region, right? That's all I would like to talk about. So hopefully this gives you a good general overview of the pathway leading up to from hunter spawn to hider spawn, right? And also you do have animals here. Sometimes you'll encounter animals that are fake along the way, so you should maybe hit animals along the way. Obviously, right? Okay, that's basically it for this video.